Shalom and hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Compelling Conversations. I am Rabbi Sanford Akselrad of Henderson, Nevada. Today, we welcome a very special guest and friend all the way from Krakow, Poland. His name is Jonathan Ornstein, and he is the CEO of the Jewish Community Center. Welcome, Jonathan. It's so good to see you.
Great to see you. An honor to be with you.
So, in a few days, he's going to be our scholar in residence at the synagogue on the 20th to the 22nd. And the reason we have picked Jonathan, aside from the fact that he has done amazing work, was about a year ago in April, I was a part of a group of, I think it was about 22 rabbis from around the United States. I think we had someone from Ukraine, Israel, and we got together organically when we heard about the crisis in Ukraine. And when we were meeting on Facebook, someone said, we really need to do something. And before you know it, within about 48 hours, the rabbis self-assembled and decided that they would be part of a mission to Poland and try to do some good. Um, and as it happened in about 2 weeks' time, we connected with Jonathan as an organization that would host us. And all these rabbis got together and we raised money. We raised about $800,000 that we brought, organized very organically, very quickly. So I wanted to make sure to remind the congregation that the war is not over, that the mission of the JCC has not stopped, that the crisis is still there, and that it wasn't supposed to be what I call a one-off of humanitarian assistance. So we have a wonderful family, the Alterwitz family, the Stralzer family, that sponsor a scholar in residence each year. And this is the first time after, 25 years that we've actually brought someone in from outside the United States. So I'm very proud to welcome Jonathan and to just learn a little bit about where we've come in the past year. But before we get to that, let's just start a little bit about your background. You grew up in New York, you went to Israel for about 7 years, and then what drew you to Krakow, of all places? This nice Jewish boy from New York.
Yeah, I did it a little bit backwards. Usually people leave, leave Europe, maybe stop in Israel and then make their way to the United States. So I did go backwards. I just wanted to say how grateful I am for the opportunity to visit you in Henderson and to connect to so many of the people that helped support our mission through you, Rabbi, and what it meant to us to have you and the other rabbis join us and to spread the word about what we're doing and to help so many Ukrainians. So thank you for that opportunity.
Welcome.
Um, I actually was living on a kibbutz in the desert after I finished the army. I was a lone soldier, and I met a Polish woman and fell in love. And sight unseen, I moved to Poland in 2001, and it didn't work out. We never got married, just kind of broke up. But I really liked Krakow, and I said, yeah, you know what? I think I'm going to stay. And I was teaching at the university, teaching a lot of non-Jews Hebrew, which was also very interesting to me. Why are these Polish non-Jews so fascinated in Jewish subjects and Hebrew and Israel and these things that I had no idea that non-Jews really cared that much about. And in 2008, the JCC was opening, and I heard about the position, and I thought that sounded interesting. A friend of mine said, "You've got to be the one to run the JCC." And I applied for the job and got it. And I like to joke that I was the only one in the country who knew what the letters JCC stood for, and that was pretty much it. So we've been open for 15 years.
That's fabulous. The history of that JCC, the founding of it, also is interesting. As I remember, Prince Charles, now King Charles, right, had a great deal to do with its establishment. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, I have to keep reminding myself, to say King Charles and then Prince
Right.
Charles. But yeah, King Charles, while he was still prince in 2002, came to visit Krakow, and as part of his state visit, he met with some survivors in the Jewish quarter of Krakow, this very well preserved Jewish quarter where the JCC is. And he was had a quick discussion, a half an hour with the survivors, and they told him about their lives, and he asked them what they needed, and they said, we have all these synagogues, but we don't have a place to be together like a senior citizen center. And the prince said, I promise I'll help you. And he got together with an organization in the UK, and that original idea of a senior center kind of grew and morphed into a community center. And they were able to raise the money in the UK with the then prince's involvement. And in 2008, King Charles and the Queen came to Krakow and opened the JCC and stayed in touch with us. We've briefed the then Prince, now King Charles, on our activities, and I've met with him in London, and he's very proud of what we're doing.
That's a beautiful story. That almost, shall we say, fairy tale-ish, right? That's
And it's not, yeah,
unbelievable.
not only, I mean, but I think what's important to highlight is not only did he get involved with the project, but he actually conceived of it without his saying, wait, I'm going to help you realize your dream and go and actually follow through. This JCC would absolutely not exist.
So one of the things I found interesting about Poland is, I mean, it was decimated during the Holocaust. There aren't that many Jews, and yet the JCC has kind of become the symbol of a Jewish Renaissance. Can you tell me a little bit more about what's going on? I mean, it's just amazing. We've got a long way to go, but yet there are people with Jewish backgrounds that they've traced that come. There are people who are the next generation, so to speak, who are coming. Tell us a little bit about how that's working.
We think of Poland as a place where Jews lived for 1,000 years, and then Jews were murdered, and the Jews who were lucky enough to survive left. But not all the survivors left Poland. Some stayed in Poland during communism. They hid their identities for years, and now a couple of generations later, in Poland being a free democratic country for the last 30 years, the children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren of the survivors who stayed are now finding out they're Jewish in all different, crazy, sometimes unbelievable ways. And we are trying to reach out to them and say, you were cut off from your identity because of the Holocaust and because of communism. And we, the Jewish world, owe you the opportunity to at least explore who you are and what being part of this whole crazy Jewish world that we're part of means. And our center is really focused on that, trying to do all we can to offer paths back into the Jewish world for these young people who are finding out they're Jewish, which, by the way, is the story of my wife as well, who found out she was Jewish, came to a Hanukkah party, and we met at the JCC. And if there was no JCC, she wouldn't have had a place to go after finding out that she's Jewish. So,
A
very
Hanukkah
personal
party.
thing. Hanukkah
Wow.
party. It's a good
It's all
party.
about the latkes.
Yeah.
A Hanukkah miracle. Well, that's great. So when we came to visit, I'll never forget all the things that you showed us. It was in April, I think it was April 10th through 14th, very short time, but we saw a lot of amazing things. The war had just broken out a couple months prior. So what gave you the idea to kind of pivot the mission of the organization to help the refugees, especially from a country like Ukraine, which of course historically was not kind to the Jewish people, to say the least?
Yeah. I mean, I would say first, historically, nobody's been that kind for a long period of time to the Jewish people. So, but your point taken. The war started on February 24th. We knew there would be refugees coming. We understood that there would be suffering, and we wanted to alleviate it. And we put up a sign saying welcome, and we started to welcome people in and feed them and give them clothing and whatever we could do. And that grew and grew. And we decided that we wanted to do all we could, that we wanted to fully help Ukraine when we started to see the magnitude of what was happening. And we made a decision that we wanted to help Jews and non-Jews equally. That for us, these people that were in need were human beings, and we have a responsibility to help them. And I think we feel a particular responsibility because of our own history, because our own Jewish community in Poland, really in Europe, was decimated by the Holocaust. And the loss and suffering was so great. It was the scale that it was, 6 million Jews murdered because of indifference, primarily. The world, for the most part, knew about what was happening, and nobody did too much about it. And we carry that with us as Jews, and we carry it with us very close to the front of our minds in Krakow, in a place that is an hour's drive from Auschwitz. So when our community has suffered because of indifference, and there's an opportunity to help prevent suffering in a large scale, then I think we have a particular responsibility, and that's what I felt from our community, and that was our community's response, and we've since then done everything we could and have gone all in on helping Ukraine, and it's approaching a year, which is unfathomable to me that thinking
Right.
about it, I couldn't believe it was still going on when you visited in April. We thought it would be a few days. So almost a year in, the numbers are tremendous. We've helped approaching 190,000 Ukrainian refugees directly, running dozens of programs inside Ukraine, on the border, and now mostly inside Krakow for women and children that have been separated from their families, that their husbands are in Ukraine fighting, supporting, trying to keep their country free and to maintain what they have.
One of the
Right.
things that kind of amazed me, when you look at America, we have issues with our border, we have issues with immigration. And yet there seemed to be, prior to the war, this relationship between Ukraine and Poland. So many people from Ukraine would take the train into Poland and then take the train back home. So already there was this, what I would say, a friendly relationship between the two countries. Yet at the same time, when does it grow old? When will Poland grow weary of having these refugees that people could say they're taking our jobs? Where do we get the money to help them? Um, I mean, are the refugees staying put in Poland, or are you a way station, or a little bit of both? And and now, about a year later, how is the Polish people feeling about having all these refugees? It's over 1 million refugees.
Yeah, the number, I mean, about 7 million have passed through Poland, and the number inside Poland now is probably between 2.5 and 3 million. So
Wow, that's a
it's a
lot of
large
people.
number, a lot of people in a country of 38 million. You're talking about, almost 10% of the population. Think about 30 million refugees coming into America within a few months would be the analogy.
So is the idea that they're going to stay, or they're just waiting for the war to get over,
For the
but
most
they
part,
won't have anything to come back to, many of them.
depends where they are, where they're going, where they have to go back to, and when the war ends. If the war ends today, is different than if there's missiles, landing on cities for the next 6 months or 6 weeks or 6 years. So for the most part, Poland is a place that they're staying because they're waiting to go back to Ukraine. So we're working with different organizations. There are different programs to help the refugees resettle, both in the United States. There's United for Ukraine and different programs like that around the world, and we're involved with those. But for the most part, we're talking about Ukrainians whose husbands, sons, fathers, brothers, friends are in Ukraine fighting, and they don't want to go very far away. They want to stay close to Ukraine so they can go back when the war ends. Some of them even go back and forth, depending if they're going back to a place that's reasonably safe. So you have a lot of Ukrainians that are waiting in Poland to go back to Ukraine, and they've been waiting, and every day they think it's the next day that they're going back. It's very, very difficult. The strain on Poland is enormous. You have to understand that it's not only the people people there, but as you mentioned, work. Ukrainians are allowed to work. Ukrainians have access to the medical system, which means free healthcare for these people. They can send their kids to school. This will make us really rethink our attitude toward the other, our attitude toward, in terms of what our responsibility is toward helping others. We saw ourselves as an engine of Tikkun Olam as an organization before this started. Very involved with LGBT issues, very involved with women. But this has made us, this will forever change our community, not only in the sense of Ukrainians living among us and that, but in what it has meant for us to be able to focus so much on helping others.
When you talk about helping others, why don't you share a little bit about some of the programs that you had to develop and some of the partnerships that you created? I think I read you've distributed about $8 million. This could have been used, for example, to expand the JCC, to build more stuff. You resisted that temptation, and you kind of became a central point of redistributing that money to where it was needed the most. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, it wasn't as if we had $8 million and decided to do it. We had zero and raised $8 million or so, 8 million also in goods that what we've been able to distribute to Ukraine. That's probably 5 years or so, almost 5 years of our annual budget. We're
Right.
talking, so the
Which is
numbers,
amazing.
the numbers for us are just massive. In terms of programs, in the beginning, we started to just give people food and diapers and a coat in our building. And that became a food pantry that's open 7 days a week, every day. We kept it open, keep it open on Shabbat. We kept it open on Yom Kippur because there's need. And about 400 to 500 people a day, 7 days a week, are coming in and taking groceries, taking what they need. We realized pretty soon after that started that we're feeding people, but where are they going? If we give somebody a bowl of soup and some, milk, and they have nowhere to live, then we haven't done all we can do. So we started to house them, finding apartments, very difficult in Krakow, hotel rooms. We have a facility outside of Krakow where we're housing 80 people, and we're housing an average of about 400 a night that we're paying to house in different types of places, mostly hotel rooms, which we're trying to move into longer term things like housing. And at this point, we're housing people that are, we have Holocaust survivors, we have people that are disabled, people that with large families, people that are blind. We're housing people that really don't have anywhere to go. Sexual violence has been a problem. We've read about that. I'm sure it's been in the newspapers. People know what's happening there. So psychological support for women, trauma support is something we've been doing and paying for a lot of psychological support, job training, language training, daycare. We've set up a safe space for women. We've brought out orphanages that we're helping to support. We brought them out of Ukraine. There were a dozen other programs inside Ukraine and on the border, sending supplies in, putting medical facility up on the Ukrainian side of the border.
And a lot of
So
this isn't on the JCC property
oh
itself,
yeah,
right?
no,
Because when we
absolutely,
went on the tour, we went to different locations
yeah.
that were funded by the JCC.
Right. So we realized that we found experts, people who know more about this than we did, and have partnered with dozens of organizations to be able to provide these services in all different areas, become a full service humanitarian hub, I guess. And it's been a very steep learning curve. We've had a lot of support and a lot of help, and we've doubled in size. We were 35 full-time employees on February 23rd, and we're about 75 full-time
Wow.
employees now. So it's doubled the organization.
Do you think what you're doing, this isn't why you're doing it, but as a side effect, do you think people will think differently about Jews? I'm sure that many people have never met a Jewish person, and the Polish people, maybe they didn't have any specific idea about Jews or maybe a negative one. Do you think that that's something that's coming about, that people are thinking differently about Jews?
Uh, I hope it has a positive effect. I think if that's not, it's of course, as you say, not why we're doing it, but we've helped 100 and almost 200,000, 190,000 Ukrainians. 98% of them at least are not Jewish, and they know they're being helped by a Jewish organization. We don't beat them over the head with it, but they know they're walking into a building. It says it in Ukrainian Jewish Community Center. And I'm happy for them to know. I think that I'm very proud of our Jewish community. I'm very proud of the uh, the generosity of the Jewish community around the world. This isn't our money that we're using.
Right.
This is the we're the we're doing the this is the initiative, or this is the will of the Jewish people to support Ukraine, and we're the ones on the ground doing it. And I'm very happy for them to know that that's the case, and if that helps them have a better opinion of Jews, or any opinion, they might have no opinion. But it seems like everybody has an opinion about the Jews. But so let that be helpful. Also, Ukraine is complicated. We talk about anti-Semitism in Ukraine. Ukraine has a Jewish president. Not only do they have a Jewish president, they have a Jewish president. For the most part, they don't even care. The fact that he's Jewish is not even a big deal. So it's not even one step above that they have a Jewish president. That's already something. It's the step that it's not, that's the real goal,
Not a
is that
big
it
deal.
doesn't matter, that it's no
But
big
but to
deal.
be fair, he doesn't really even wear his Judaism on his sleeve, right? I mean, he acknowledges that he's Jewish, but he has not portrayed himself as a Maccabee, where some people want to give him that moniker.
Yeah, he's very smart in the way he portrays himself, and he understands how to keep everybody on the right side. We hosted him in 2020. We for the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. We, together with the Auschwitz Museum, the Auschwitz Birkenau Memorial Foundation, in World Jewish Congress, we hosted a dinner in Krakow, and he was our guest of honor, and I was the MC of the evening. So I got to spend a little bit of time with President Zelensky, who was a great guy. But you certainly didn't see, you never know what when people are called, how they're going to react. And he was a guy who looked like what he was, a funny Jewish smart comedian who parlayed that into becoming the president, and just a regular guy. And there was no sign of this kind of, as you say, modern day Maccabee that he's become.
Some people can rise to greet history head on, and others are frightened by it and just don't make it. So I think he's going to be remembered as one of the more remarkable people of our generation.
No question. No question. I don't need
Which,
remember, I don't need a ride. What I need is ammunition. It's a great
yeah,
line.
that whole line changed everything because we had seen other countries where the leader of the country left, and that was it. And probably Russia could have taken Ukraine within the week, which is what they thought. But
Yes.
he stood
Had he
firm.
left, you're right. Had he left, that would have been the end of the war.
Yeah. As you look back to where it was when I came in April of last year to now, do you see any changes at all in people's thinking in terms of the good that you're doing, the challenges that you're facing? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the ground, we've gotten better at what we're doing. We were still in a little bit in shock, just what was going on and how to serve people, and we've become a lot more professional. If you came in today, you would see a system, and people are scanning, their passports, taking their numbers. It's gotten a lot more. Well, as you hope to do, is to get better at what you're doing. And we were new to the humanitarian effort, the world, and we've gotten better at it. I think a real challenge for us, though, is that it's not as big a story as it was, but the need is still there. Of all the money that we've been able to raise, 80% of that is in the first few months.
Right.
And it's gotten a lot more difficult just because, people move on, and there are lots of needs in the world and needs closer to home. And people feel they wrote a check, and they've done done what they needed to do. And I get it, but, the need is still there. So it's a challenge for us to continue to serve these people. Every day I walk into work, and there's a line of women and children, a lot of them with baby carriages, some older women with canes, waiting to get into the building, about 40 to 50 people lined up before we even open every day. And even if I wanted to, keep it out of my mind for a minute, that's what this responsibility we've taken on, I walk through it every day. And sometimes my wife, we have a 1-year-old baby, and she'll come up in the baby carriage to come, in the stroller to come visit me, or to do something at the JCC. She works there as well. And she's waiting outside with the stroller, and there are a dozen other strollers. And I think, wow, the difference between, those people are just like me, except I'm in a position to help them. And I hope if I were ever in a position of needing it, they would help us. And I think the fact that the Jews have been in this position before and weren't helped doesn't make me want to not help. It makes me want to help even more, because once you know what it means to be the victim, or to be a people that's been victimized, I hope what that means for Jews is that we have appreciate our special responsibility to prevent that type of suffering in others.
Jonathan, you've talked so much about what you're doing and how this has been going on for a year. I'm just curious about you. Like, how has it touched you personally and your staff? How have you been able to process your feelings and emotions as you see this tragedy unfolding?
I see it as an incredible honor to be in the position that, especially in a place of Jewish suffering, that I can help others. So I don't really think too much about, probably when this is all over, I'll think about what we've done. But I'm very focused on the day to day,
You're
and
in the moment.
in the moment, and making sure that we can continue to feed people and house people. But it's a challenge. It's a lot. I think for me, what gets me is seeing the little children. Maybe because I, have a first time father I became first time father at age 52, and have a little baby. So when I see the babies next to my baby, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe what that must be like. And it sort of makes me double down and be thankful that I'm the one helping, not the one needing help. But it has been a challenge. Early on, people were working, insane hours. Suddenly we're a humanitarian hub, and we brought in specialists, therapists to speak to our staff to help them deal with that. And before, in those moments right before we really were able to staff up, it was incredibly difficult. First of all, in how much time people were giving, and also in what they were doing. You're a
Right.
programmer that's dealing with, creating Jewish content, and suddenly we're housing and feeding people that are escaping war with these unbelievable stories. So
I
it's
remember when I came with this group of rabbis, you wanted to go and do mitzvahs. You didn't want to look at people as if they were in a zoo, and you didn't. You wanted to kind of connect with them and learn about what was going on. And my mission was to not only bring the money, and it was to bring over-the-counter medicines. And then before I finished packing, my wife gave me teddy bears. I said, "What am I going to do with the teddy bears?" She says, "You'll understand." And so I brought, half a dozen teddy bears. And I remember seeing the line and taking that teddy bear, looking at the mother, saying, "Is this okay?" And the kids just gripped that teddy bear and held it close to their hearts. And I just wonder, 20, 40, 50 years, will someone look at that teddy bear and say, some stranger handed this to me, and there'll become a story behind that teddy bear. But it
no,
was obviously something that they emotionally needed just to hold on because they had lost so much.
your wife is very wise. I'll tell you that, you think about those moments, and you think, like, for us, an important aspect of it is to make the process as say, as positive, but as not dehumanizing as possible. You talk about the teddy bear and giving it to a child. Like, you wonder that, something positive, then maybe that'll, you never know how that'll affect them. And you're just so mindful of, oh, they do something and makes them laugh or makes them smile, then maybe they won't, it won't be as traumatic as it must be just to be picked up and separated from your parents, or one of your parents at least, and in a foreign country. So we're just mindful of the little things. In some ways, just handing people food is the easy thing, although it's not easy. But the challenge is to do it with them, giving them dignity, and not having them feel terrible and feel like victims.
So if people do want to help, what's the best way? Just give that website. give us that method.
We have we you can make a tax deductible donation. Everything is tax deductible. We have a Friends of organization, Friends of JCC Krakow.org. It's a 501c3. Friends of JCC Krakow.org, and that /Ukraine. But you can just write Ukraine, and it'll make sure that every penny of that will go to support Ukraine.
When we host you the weekend of the 20th to the 22nd, I told them to kind of bring your running shoes because we're going to keep you pretty busy. The main event will be services on Friday night. Our congregation near Tamid in Henderson at 7 p.m. And that's when Jonathan will give his main address. But on Saturday morning at 8:45, he's going to be leading Torah study. Following services at about 11:30, we're welcoming the interfaith community to talk a little bit about interfaith relations in Poland. And then at what time is it? About 1:30, we're going to be talking about a special project near and dear to your heart. A couple words. What is that? It's something to do with the biking and the
Yeah.
trip from Auschwitz to the JCC, and I think they're doing a documentary on it. What's that going to be about? Without spoiling it too much, but trying to get people to come to that.
We do a very special bicycle ride every year at the end of June, which coincides with the Jewish Culture Festival in Krakow, which is the largest Jewish culture festival in the world. And we do a one-day bicycle ride with a whole educational program built around it for a weekend. And that's a 60-mile bicycle ride from Auschwitz to the JCC, to go from the darkness of Auschwitz to the light and hope of a reborn Jewish community in Krakow. And we've
And you have
had
people from all over the world attend
all
to
over
that.
the world. We've had Greg LeMond, who won the Tour de France 3 times with
Wow.
us. We have Holocaust survivors that do it with us. I do it on a tandem with a 93-year-old survivor of 5 camps.
I want to
Uh,
do it with an e-bike, okay?
e-bikes. We have e-bikes, and a documentary film called For the Living is about our bicycle ride and how that fits as a response to genocide, is coming out this year. So
Well, we're going to keep you busy, and then I believe on Sunday you're going to be talking to the religious school students and their parents, and then we're going to let you go to your next destination. So again, thank you for renewing this relationship, for coming out. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with us?
Just be great to see everybody out in the synagogue and in the environs. And I'm very excited to come. And just thank you again, Rabbi. You've been such a strong supporter of our work from the moment you got
Been
to
my
Krakow.
pleasure.
And it's an honor to work with you and to support Ukraine together.
Thank you. Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in for another edition of Compelling Conversations. And we hope that you will attend the program January 20th. And until then, shalom.